Ma. I gave away the verses. Now I need somewhere and have. I don't have the verse. Can I borrow somebody? You have? Can you share or just for us?
Oh, of course.
Well, then you have. You guys can share one. Just I'll give it back to you afterward, or unless you're using it for notes. I just don't have anything to chant from. Because when my notes are to find it, I have to scroll up 20 pages to find the verse. So, thank you. Well, many pages on siddhis. Siddhā. Okay, I think we're good. Om Mangalam Guru Devaya Devi Matrikya Mangalam Mangalam Bhakta Brindebhyo Sarva Lokaya Mangalam Om Stapakaya Chadarmasya Sarva Dharma Sarupini Avatar Varishtaya Ramakrishnaya Te Namaha Om Jananim Sharadam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagat Gurum Parapadme Tayostritva Pranamami Muhur Muhur Om Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Guru Deva Maheshwara Guru Reva Param Brahman Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Om Sarashiva Samarambam Shankaracharam Ajamam Ashmarachara Prayantam Bande Gurum Param Om Bhadrakali Namo Nityam Saraswati Namo Namaha Veda Viranga Vedanta Vijjastana Evacha Sri Ganesha Sharada Guru Pyo Namaha Hari Om Jai Ma Jai Ma. So happy to be continuing with our discussions on the Kālī Sahasranāma, the 1,000 names of Goddess Kali. Last week we had a program, so we took a break. We didn't meet. And now I have to get my notes back, sorry. There it is. Technical difficulties. And today is auspicious day. Just I like to remind auspicious day. Today is by date, the 100th anniversary of the sannyas initiation of Swami Bhajanananda Saraswati from the Divine Life Society. And for me personally, he's been extreme influence. And I spent a lot of time at his ashrams in India with his senior disciples in India. If you haven't read his books, he has 300 books in English. Right. And they're wonderful, authentic traditional books, but written in English for a Indian audience, right, at a different time. So they probably you need to update them in your mind as you're reading. Language and things like that, definitely outdated, but spiritually correct books. Okay, now we're back. Sorry, I had to start over again here. So we're on the names in verse 37. I gave you, some of you have the sheets, I gave 37 and 38, so we probably won't get to the names in 38, but sorry. So what we were talking about last time is the name sarveśvarī, sarva-mātā, śarvāṇī, hara-vallabhā, sarva-jñā, siddhidā. We spent 2 weeks just on 2 names. On siddhidā, the giver of siddhis. So we describe what siddhis are, and she's the grantor of siddhis. And then siddhā is she who herself is perfect, right? Or attainment, it has attained. So we spent a lot of time on what the siddhis are traditionally understood, and then and we also discussed like their relationship to like miracles and that world of religious phenomenon and religious belief. And also potentially some of the dangers Sri Ramakrishna Swami Vivekananda gave, or actually warned their devotees to be a little bit weary of the cities themselves as potential things that can deviate us from the spiritual path and from our spiritual interest, actual spiritual goal. So
I found this on the web.
This is not good today. Today is one of those days. Stop it. This is the nature of meditation. This is what I'm trying to I simply want to start talking on one thing and all these things come into mind. This is supposed to have made my life simple. It's a very strange thing. I'm in the sound thing. I don't know if I'm glitching here. Sorry. We're back. Okay. Thank you. sarveśvarī, sarva-mātā, śarvāṇī, hara-vallabhā, sarva-jñā, siddhidā, siddhā, bhavyā, bhayāpahā. Actually, we've been practicing. My specialty is in chanting these verses. I haven't practiced very much, but just to get the sound of it, so we can repeat after. We can do half of that or to practice this verse. Let me look at it. sarveśvarī, sarva-mātā, sarveśvarī, sarva-mātā, śarvāṇī, hara-vallabhā, sarva-jñā, siddhidā, siddhā, bhavyā, bhayāpahā, sarveśvarī, sarva-mātā, śarvāṇī, hara-vallabhā, sarva-jñā, siddhidā, siddhā, bhavyā, bhayāpahā, sarveśvarī, sarva-mātā, śarvāṇī, hara-vallabhā, sarva-jñā, siddhidā, siddhā, bhavyā, bhayāpahā. So now we're on name 295, bhavyā. And so there's a lot of alliteration. I believe, we have the names, we can kind of imagine why they're clustered in a certain way. They're clustered by themes, and I think they're clustered also just by sound, the beautiful alliteration. And sometimes the sonic alliteration joining matches so perfectly with the themes of the meanings of these names that I think it's really quite brilliant how it happens. And so sarveśvarī, she was the controller of all. Sarva-mātā, the mother of all. śarvāṇī, it's a form of Shiva. Shiva's a protective form of Devi. Hara-vallabhā, she who is the wife or the lover or the beloved of Shiva. Sarva-jñā, the one who knows everything. Siddhidā, the one who grants powers or perfection. Siddhā, the one who's perfect. So we've now done almost 300 names in this way over the months, years. We've been going at this slowly, and we'll probably be at this years, right? As we get to 1,000 names. So each name is another little swipe, another little meditation at one that can't be understood. And I think every few lectures I have to go back to this point is that these are names of the great mystery, right? And when we were talking on your podcast, we were saying that that the books that I like least are books on Kali, right? Because all these people who make like absolute statement or even true or attempt at true statements, she can't be understood this way, right? Anything we say about her is ways of meditate upon her, right? But who and what she is not, I think when meditating recently, is not what we think for sure, right? It cannot be what we think. And some of the verses I've been contemplating the last few days bring that out, right? So these names are revealing her, but they're not revealing her as this like we're like more details, known details about somebody. Like I know about your name and your address and your qualities like that. It's naming the way I keep going back to in my own mind. We're naming the mystery, and so the nature of knowledge, if you state something and you state what you know, right, really what you're stating is how little you know, right? You don't know. My Guru used to say, well, a wise man and a fool stand in front of you, and who's wise and who's a fool? You have no idea until they speak, right? Then you know, right? And usually when they speak, is they reveal not how little they know, they reveal what they know. And as soon as you reveal what you know, then they reveal how much they don't know, right? And so our Guruji used to tell us, don't tell people what you know, right? So how is it now we're supposed to lecture or give classes and courses, right, on what we know? Not what we know. We're focusing on the unknown, right? And with that kind of humility of knowledge, right? So each one of these names is going to be like this, right? Is like this. So these two names, bhavyā and bhavyā, and then bhayāpahā. So I think there's alliteration, that bha sound, bhavyā, bhāvyā, bhayāpahā, I think are important. So bhavyā, what is bhavyā? So bhavyā and bhav, we know the word bhava. We've all heard this, oh, that's what's your bhav, right? Or dasya bhav, or feel the, it gets corny, you feel the bhav, it gets really bad sometimes in the modern context, right? But bhava means something, and bhava comes from, I believe, comes from bhava. So bhava is something like existence. It's like something's essential nature, ontological nature. Ontology is bhava, right? And bhava is its state, like a changing state of something. So bhava could be considered the unchanging state, perhaps is the way to think of it. And bhava, it's the unchanging reality, or the reality itself as such. And bhava could be a describable changing state, perhaps. So bhava means existence, right? And bhava means also can be used in the sense of creation. In many Sanskrit sentences like that, when you say that God is a creator, or no, the creation is not a creator. The creation itself is also bhava, right? So then it comes to mean like existence itself, but like not the exact condition of existence. That's bhava, but existence itself, but not like the transcendent existence, the real nature of whatever is manifest is bhava, right? So in use, it becomes like worldly existence, birth, production, origin, experience, and also can be a shorthand for like in text to like samsara, birth and death, like this, right? There's a verse. Those who know us know that one of our favorite hymns is called the Kālī, attributed to Shankaracharya. And there's a verse that says, taking shelter, and it's praying to Kali. And I love this. One of the reasons I love this verse, I think the end line of each verse points to the unknown mystery, right? It says that what your real nature is. After describing you are this, you are this, you are this, you are this, but actually who you really are, right? Even the gods don't understand, right? And so I love that refrain. But it says, having taken shelter in you, O Kali, the divinities of the three gunas, this is Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, are able to create, sustain, and destroy, thus becoming the foremost of the gods. So Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, the one who creates, the one who just maintains, and the one who destroys, they got their position because they worship Kali. This is in, where did these stories, similar statements are there in the Srimad Devi Bhagavatam and in the Bhagavat Mahapurana also. Stories of how they did tapasya in order to get the positions of the Divine Mother, in order to get the position to create, sustain, and destroy. So thus becoming forms of the gods. Without origin, you are the origins of. Without origins, you are the origins of the gods. Right? You have no beginning, and you are the cause. You are the beginning. You are the origin of the gods themselves. Right? The origin of sacrifice. So without origin, you are the origin of the gods, origins of sacrifice, and origin of the world. Right? So this is a exalted Devi theology, right? Where the goddess herself is the one who gives blessings to the gods to create, sustain. The ones we think of as whoever we think of as God, right, in normal religion, he got their position by worshiping goddess. This is the radical, wonderfully radical claim of these Devi texts, right? And they're the source of the gods, the source of sacrifice, and the source of the world itself. And they're the world. The word for world in that sentence is bhava, bhavadim, anadim, suradhim, makadim, bhavadim. Right. So that's is trying to think of, this is the name for the Devi, and in the Devi, in a Kali hymn, this name is there. So that means, so she is bhava, she is the, that means she is the world, right? The existence, the ontological nature of the world, right? The world's existence, right? And therefore another way of saying that is she is, if the time we can say creation, some dictionaries, oh, she's creation. But that creation is a different philosophical concept, right? Without the Devi, there is no world. Whether or not she created the world we're mixing Western theological concepts so a little bit sometimes, but we can say it that way, right? And therefore, she is the origin of the world and the origin of all beings. That's usually what's meant. So she is existence. She is the world. She is the manifestation, right? Next name, bhavyā. Bhavyā. So she who is, it's translated as one person, Swami Bhajanananda says, all attitudes. So that's one way of describing bhava, right? So bhava is rooted in bhava, and also has a double meaning of emotion, sentiment, state of the body, mind, state of the mind, a disposition, a character, becoming, being, existing. It plays with these ideas, occurring, appearance. I was just listening. I was just conditioned. So in popular thought, it's in popular thought, bhava means like what our thoughts are, and what our mood. We use it often as mood, right? So that means she is all moods. If bhavyā means all moods, or it means attitudes, or it means thoughts, or it means relationships. We use that bhava that way, or it means essence. That means she is all moods, all thoughts, all attitudes, all relationships, all essences. So we can actually start thinking, what are our thoughts, right? What are our relationships, right? And to see her as a reality behind all of our thoughts, every one of our thoughts, right? And as all of our relationships, all of our attitudes, right? So I think that's important. So she is existence, and it's a way of saying she is existence and she is everything in existence, right? That's a way of saying. So then the next line, the next name, I think most likely this is what we'll spend the most time talking about, rooted in bhava and bhavyā, is bhayāpahā. And I've fallen in love the last couple of days, just the sound of this name, bhayāpahā, right? Bhayāpahā. Bhaya, have to get the H in there. Bhaya, right, means fear, right? And we see, like, one of her hands is abhaya mudra, right? She's this one. She's offering fearlessness, right? So this could be said. Bhayāpahā we could point to her iconography as a boon giving, or at the fearlessness bestowing hand. And apaha means destroying, right? Or dispelling, or absence of something, or warding off, right? Or keeping away, or curbing. It can be used in all these different ways. So she who destroys fear, dispels fear, is the absence of fear, wards off fear, keeps away fear, curing also. Apaha also means like the cure of something. You have a disease, a cure is apaha, right? Is one of the uses, right? The cure for fear, right? Sounds like a Depeche Mode song or something. I'm thinking Tears for Fears. Sorry, glitch of samskaras are hard thing to overcome. Yeah, So I'm a lover of the Srimad Bhagavatam, right? And so whenever names jump at me, I immediately think, oh, there's a verse like that in the Bhagavatam, right? And so at the very beginning of the Bhagavatam, where I spent in the first skanda, 7th chapter, 7th verse, it's describing the glory of the Bhagavatam, the glory of the devotional text. And so we can take the same principle, the glory of the Kālī Sahasranāma, or the glory of the Gita, or the glory of the Ramakrishna Katamrita, the text that describes God and describes devotional life, and or it could be also describing the Vedas or the scripture like that. This verse is describing the benefit of hearing the scriptures, right? This is what it's talking about. Yasyam vai sruyamanayam, right? Yasyam, this referring to this divine spiritual literature, right? Vai, certainly, sruya, to hear, manyamam, simply by hearing this spiritual topics, right? The scriptures, Krishna parama purushe, bhaktir. So one develops devotion to Krishna. This is a Vaishnava text of Srimad Bhagavatam. The supreme, the Parama Purusha, the supreme person, the supreme personality, Krishna. Simply by hearing the scriptures, devotion to Krishna arises. So that's the topic of that verse. But then, what's the benefit of that? When you hearing it, devoting, what happens when you hear and develop devotion to God? It says, where is it here? Utpadayate pumsha shoka maha bhayāpahā. It struck me because this word bhayāpahā is there, right? It says, bhaktir upadyate, that bhakti springs up. Thinking of God and hearing this divine scriptures, hopefully attending satsangs like this, right? Devotion to God sprouts. When devotion to God sprouts, something happens, right? Something that sprouts is like when devotion sprouts, something is destroyed. Something is apaha, right? And those actually three things are listed. It's a shoka, moha, and bhaya. Shoka, moha, bhayāpahā. Shoka means grief, lamentation, right? Sadness, brokenheartedness. This type of the lamentation. Grief is probably the best word. And then moha means delusion, ignorance and delusion, right? And bhaya means fear, right? So thinking of God, hearing the scriptures, just hearing and listening and studying and meditating on these beautiful texts, right? Devotion springs. When devotion springs, these three things are destroyed, right? So we can say bhayāpahā, right? Is this name bhayāpahā? But you could also, many verses have many texts that put these three together or different things together. When this happens, these three, this is destroyed. What's destroyed is grief, ignorance, and fear. So grief, ignorance, and fear are connected, right? And actually, ignorance and fear are very often connected, right? And in the Upanishads and the scriptures, right? In the Briharanyaka Upanishad, I always think oh my goodness, hold on, something bad has happened. 1 second. Glitch again. Sorry. Sorry, dear ones. Unfortunately, I actually lost somehow or another on the internet. Some notes got lost with some verses. I had some nice verses from the Upanishads I can summarize. Swami Vivekananda, they'll have to do this from memory. I had nice notes. 2 days of notes gone. That's the way it works. Swami Vivekananda, he said, I will summarize the Upanishads in two words, I think, 2 syllables. Something like that, like a fearlessness, abhaya, something like that, right? I shall summarize all the message of Upanishads as fear.
Words, I think. It's like 4 words. A was like asanga, abhaya,
Yes, yeah. So one of them, yeah. So I'm just thinking of the abhaya. So fearlessness is the word. And so in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, it says, where there is duality, there is fear. Right? So that's the way to think of, if we're talking existential things, we're talking, which is what these bhavyā and bhāvyā, right? Bhavyā and bhāvyā hint at, right? What is a real cause of fear, right? Of course, we have real causes of fear, right? That could be, I mean, in this world right now, especially, there's many causes of extreme fear and danger, right? And fear is a legitimate and natural and expected and understandable and reasonable response to many things, right? But this is getting at what is the real cause of fear, right? And so he said, where there is duality, there's fear. And the verse I was meditating on is in the second part of, in the Taittiriya Upanishad, 2:6. If you go look it up at home. I remember the verse, but I don't remember. I don't have the verse written. I lost the verse. But it says something like, that upon, it says, Brahman, Ananda, it says, upon attaining the bliss of Brahman. It uses the word Ananda and Brahman, Paramananda Brahman, something like this. It says, when the mind, when one attains the knowledge of Brahman, the bliss of Brahman, from which the mind, I wish I had the verse, which the mind comes back, the words retreat, and the mind retreats. I know that beyond, we can't, the one that, knowing which, the mind comes back, cannot think. Words cannot think, but we can experience the bliss of Brahman, the bliss of Brahman. When that is attained, or that is experienced, then the fear of another is destroyed. Right? That's to say, the actual destruction of fear comes from the attainment of a non-dual understanding, a non-dual experience, bliss. Right? And you can see if we're, so perhaps this is the meaning of this hand. If she is giving fearlessness, of course we think, oh Ma, please protect me. That's the fan that we can think. Oh, we have a goddess like a mother like her. What do we have to fear? We can think that emotionally, but I think maybe it's hinting at something more deep, right? That to know, if one only by experiencing by feeling the bliss of the absolute Brahman, from which the mind and speech come back confused, right? Then only fear of another is destroyed, right? And then also written down, but not written down, you pointed out a verse from the Avahutta Gita, verse 1. You know the verse 1? Yeah. Ishvara, yeah, sorry, what is it? Thank you. Yes. Yeah. So it's only Ishvara by the grace. So it's only by the grace of Ishvara, by the grace of God, right? That I think it says Advaita Vrittam, right? And so we could say that's a desire, right? It could be the thought. Could be the thought of non-duality, or a desire for non-duality arises in the wise, in the Vipra, right? In the sages, right? So only by God's grace does the desire for non-dual understanding, or the thought of non-dual, or the thought of the non-dual one, it can be that vasana could be thought or desire for something, or the thought itself can be interpreted both ways, right? Thus, granting one a freedom from the great fear, mahabhaya, right? So then the question, what is the great fear, right? And so commentators that what is the great fear is the most commentators, the Avahutta Gita. Anybody, people know, I mean, you know Avahutta Gita, you know. Anybody here read Avahutta Gita? You know, it's a wonderful text. There's a nice translation by Swami Chaitananda. There's one. Ashokananda did it, and Swami Chaitananda did one. A very beautiful, clean translation. And it's a sadhu text. Right? And I was telling His Holiness Swami Chidananda, disciple Swami Shivananda, has said, be careful reading this text, right? Because it's so Advaitic, right? That it can sometimes put an end to your spiritual practice. Because because it's assuming realization. And he described it as he described it as self-realized sages comparing notes. It's meant for that level, and even that if it's by Dattatreya, his name's not actually in it. The Avadhuta, most attributed to Guru Dattatreya. He says, actually, the Avadhut, have just sung these verses. He's not teaching. He sung these verses from the fullness of his realization, right? But it starts with this verse, right? That the desire, by the grace of God, we can experience non-dual reality or a desired non-duality, thus ending this great fear. And so the great fear is the fear, with most commentaries, of the other. Or it could be, one of the great fears is samsara, right? And itself, samsara, the fear of birth and death, right? But also we have other fears. We can think, the real fear or the fear of the other, and the real fear is a fear of samsara, birth and death, or in more classical Buddhist terms, a fear of lower rebirth, right? Therefore, at least we shouldn't get reborn in a hungry ghost or an animal in a hellish realm. So sometimes that's a big fear. So, right? But what are our fears? We have samsara itself is a fear. There's in the scriptures we have demons, right? External demons. Right, maybe we could think like that, or at least. I mean, I don't know about many. I mean, I think, but I'm nervous about demon, as we've talked about before. One of Ma's names is destroyer of demons, right? And it's difficult when we externalize the demon and pray for her to destroy, as we were joking, please kill Ted type thing, Right, poor Ted. That was our. We had 4 or 5 days of poor Ted, Forgive me, Ted. High school. Right. Oh, whatever. I mean, I'm joking with that, but there's external monsters that aren't laughable, right? But we should be careful about the language, the demonization language. Right? We have to watch our own language, I think, on that. But we also have internal demons, right? So these are and those classical terms. We all can have our own list. Right, I don't have to tell you what your demon. Maybe I do, because sometimes we don't know the demons are demons, right? Lust, anger, greed, jealousy, pride, these type of things, are potential. There's a classical list. There's many classical lists, right? But you can make your own, right? So these are things that can be destroyed by knowledge of the one, knowledge, or by hearing, or when devotion. See, I gave the Advaitic text by the Upanishad about when there's no other and you're in Advaitic set, there's no fear. But also Krishna says when devotion develops, fear is destroyed. So I think these are two ways, right? To know the one or to love the one, right? Both of them destroy fear, right? Both of them can destroy the roots of fear, which is the view of the other also. So another thing is what we call anartas. What are anartas? Anarta is the unwanted things. So the inner enemies could be considered anartas, but anarta is anything that's not things that we want that we really don't want, or things that we want that we shouldn't want. Right? We all have our own list also, and there's traditional lists of anartas, right? And sometimes I like to meditate on those traditional lists because some things on those lists are not on my list, and they would think, I thought we were supposed to want those things. Like it's interesting. Like there's a very interesting verse in the Gita in the. What's the demonic and the Daivi and Nasuic Sampati, that chapter 16 or 15 or 16, right? 16, the chapter on the demonic and divine nature. In it states exactly, but he says that there's triple is the gates to hell, right? There's 3 gates. I had those verses in my head and on my verse that got this erased somehow. Triple are the gates to hell. It says it is kama, it is krodha, and it is kama, krodha, and what is it? Loba. Is it loba? It is fear. It is desire. It is lust. It is greed. Loba. Yeah, it is greed. It is lust. It is greed, and it is anger. Right. These are the 3 gates to hell. Right. And then it describes where those come from and things like this. Right. And I remember when I was first reading this verse, that lust, anger, and greed. I mean, this is that chapter. If you haven't read, it's the least contemplated chapter of the Gita. I think everybody quotes all kinds of verses about non-attachment to work and things like this, but nobody describes the divine and demoniac qualities, the divine qualities and demonic qualities. Also, I have to be careful. When we see demoniac and divine qualities in people, which by that list we're living. I mean, it's a very telling list, right? But we also notice those same qualities. One of the I always joke. One of the qualities is one demoniac quality is noticing other people's demoniac qualities. That's one of the problems. You know? So that's so anyways, it's educational. But Vedanta is very like kama and krodha. What started as a kama, krodha, and lobha, lust, anger, and greed. Something to meditate on that anger is an interesting one, right? Because anger, what is anger comes. The scriptures, even the Krishna says, anger comes from thwarted desire, right? So kama is desire, lobha is greed. Greed is kama and krodha are just two different versions of greed, right? And it's not desire as the natural desire of the heart and spiritual desire. It's like you could say that's why I think to describe it as maybe lust and greed, rather than desire and greed, to give it but even lust is not intrinsically bad, you know. It's like, but you know, in its negative life polluting sense. That's what I mean, right? And then anger is always thwarted desire, and so if we analyze when we're angry, this has been an experiment for me for many years. Anytime I'm angry, I see which desire is being frustrated, and sometimes it's not that I'm wrong to be angry. Right? Maybe that desire is a legitimate, a noble desire, right? Sometimes we're angry, you know, we could be righteous indignation, right? Because our desire, like for people to be safe and happy and healthy and not abused or whatever the list is, we can have real anger, right? Because we have real desires that those desires aren't necessarily wrong, right? But to see the inner psychological working of how thwarted desire always leads to anger, and anger is always a version of thwarted desire, right? So, and the anger, other people's anger, and our anger is always thwarted desire. So it's interesting to see. But thinking about this, like, but kama, so kama and moha, right? I guess I don't have the verse. So there's another we can say we're taught in the Vedas that there's 4 goals of life, right? Kama, one of them is kama, and the second one's artha, right? And then kama, artha, dharma, and moksha, right? So kama and artha. Kama is desire, normal happiness and desires in this world, and artha is material, is wealth, right? So the other thing is kama. That's the same as lust and greed, right? I was thinking it's like 2 of the gates to hell are the 2 goals of human life. That means we have to be really careful how to analyze these things, right? So sometimes we think, the goals of life. Or it says in the Vedas, right? It says in the Upanishads. It says in so many texts. It describes the 4 goals of life, right? Kama, artha, dharma, kama, artha, moksha, right? But Krishna says that kama and artha are potentially the gates to hell, right? So sometimes hearing what anarthas are, what are these unwanted things, is helpful, right? When you study the scriptures, to see, like, I have to think about this a little bit, right? The things I thought were maybe my goal, a legitimate goal, even the goal of, not even the goal of life and my goal, but the goal of, maybe it's a goal of human life, right? So we have to think, right? Or like another example that powerful for me is a Vaishnava tantric text, medieval Vaishnava tantra and Chaitanya tradition, that describes subtle anarthas of bhakti. And bhakti, it means misunderstood. There's some anarthas that we think are the goals of bhakti, but aren't. That are actually weeds. They're not like for instance, like when you start chanting God's name, right? All kinds of stuff happen. Maybe you've experienced it. You think your diet gets good. Maybe you become healthy. Your friends change. Everything becomes sattvic. You start cleaning your space. Who knows? All kinds of stuff. Things can happen, and you start doing yoga, and you see, things become healthy and happy and sattvic. You become sattvic. Sattva guna is natural in bhakti, right? As if good diet and a peaceful environment is a goal of spiritual life, right? So it's like that's not the goal of bhakti. That's a beautiful thing. It's Swami Bhajanananda called it, right? Gold chains or iron chains, right? Both. There's a line in the Sannyasin goal. What is it? Tell me again. My ears are plugged.
as a golden chain is no less strong to bind.
Yeah, a golden chain is no less strong to bind. That's a very powerful, So those happen when I read those verses. I get they're painful because you realize our own things that we're thinking are that. I mean, maybe it's somebody else's view, and maybe that's not. That doesn't apply to us. We think, but maybe it does. Maybe these are subtle things that come, the unwanted things. We don't know we don't always know. We don't always know what's good for it to want, right? We have hidden desires, So this is something to be fearful also, perhaps, right? And from our last talk, maybe the cities. We have to be careful of the city. Maybe it comes right after the word siddhi and siddhidā, right? But don't worry, she'll free you of the fear of. I mean, maybe it's like that. But then also, or our karmas. We can be fearful of our karmas because our suffering is also caused by our karmas in some real way. We have to be tricky. It's a little. I mean, we cannot make a direct, understandable causal chain, because the belief is that the general belief is that our pleasures and happinesses, successes and failures, pleasures and pains, are not caused by causes in this life, but probably thousands of lives back also. So we can't make a connection like that. But we can also see, our suffering. Who knows what's lurking? We need to free ourselves from the danger, the suffering that's coming, right? As possible enemies. And then there's also enemies, right? We also have enemies. There's people who are trying to hurt us, or can't. Hopefully, I wish all of that. There's nobody trying to hurt you, and you have no real enemies. Right? That's my sincere. Now I'm not warning you. Lock your doors, please. I don't want to do that. Right? We don't do like that. So, in which case, what do you do? I mean, so what's another? What do we do to free ourselves from fear from such enemies, right?
Yes.
Well, we lock our doors, right? Or we call the police, right? Or call the army, right? Or something like this, or whoever the actual. There's antagonistic forces, right? Or we build, we lock our gate, and we've gone through. We had a breach in security, so we've gone and figured out locks and this and cameras and to protect ourselves, right? But if delusion, if grief, ignorance, and delusion, ignorance, and fear are caused by another, right? Then a high wall, or a good gun, or good locks, or the removal or protection of an enemy does not remove it, right? That's the problem. The ontological quality is not removed, right? Only by knowledge of the. So what the text says is by the experience of the bliss of Brahman, or devotion to the Supreme Person. These things are destroyed. Okay. I'm trying to remember within my notes. So I have to. It's a little as I'm scanning my mental Rolodex here. It's not there. I was contemplate. I mean, I spent the last 5 years contemplating this. Right. I contemplated just like the five, like the inner, the 6 Cs, and all these different lists. Buddhism has a great list. Right, of what they hold is everyone's disease. They call it the 3 poisons. And I don't have it in my list, I have to remember them. One of them is raga. I think the way they use it, I think it's raga. Raga means desire, or desire or greed. Right, desire as a cycle, and greed as its excess, its negative excess. Then there's I think dvesha, right, and that's like anger. Anger or aggression or hatred, right? And then the other one's moha, delusion or ignorance, right? Same principle of delusion. He says these are the poisons these poison everything, right? And it's a very clear Buddhist teaching. And actually, sometimes it's helpful to think of these things, that all of us suffer from the 3 poisons. Everything is poisoned by it. This is the cause of our suffering, Buddhism says. It's also the cause for us causing others suffering. Right, it's like you can imagine greed. You can just put it in the most negative: greed, hatred, and ignorance. These are it's being played out in our personal lives and and on the world stage. How much suffering, atrocities are caused by these 3, but all suffering is caused by these three, and everyone has them, right? That's what the Buddha said. Everyone has them, and actually, sometimes we think one of the things we've been contemplating is something we romanticize. Like go back in the olden days, or back in the previous yuga, or before the modern world, or before colonialism, or before whatever, right? And of course, all these things can be contemplated, but the ancient Aztecs, the ancient Hindus, the ancient Mayans, the ancient and Africans and Ethiopians and like that all suffered from these three poisons, right? And they're suffering within their world. And so anyway, this is to me, I'm constantly I'm conscious of I like this language. It allows to poke at it, right? And I think and this is that thing that keeps us in ignorance. It keeps us and keeps us in the world of to use the Bhagavatam of grief, delusion, and fear, right? So how to overcome that? So what she is the we can pray to her. She is the one that removes fear and grants fearless, destroys fear, right? So if we have real causes of fear, we can pray to, we can, should do. This place is partially to pray to her, right? That she destroys and removes the causes of your fear. But the foundational cause, right, is deeper than, it's the scene of another. Right, the foundational duality causes fear, right? So with most of my notes missing, this is what I can remember was in my notes. Are there any questions or comments? What time is it? I think it's a good time, yeah. It's exactly 6:30. Yep. Yes. Actually, that's also in my notes. That got erased. I put actually Bhavatarani to the previous name is there, and there it's the Bhavatarani. Bhava here means the world, and Bhavatarani. So that's a perfect. Actually, she's Bhava, she's Bhavatarani, she's Bhava, and she's Bhavatarani. This name is not in this list. I think maybe Bhavatarani may actually Tarani is in the list. Maybe even the next verse. It's not in the next. I'm about to swipe my paper. I just did this. Like, wow, delusion is one of the three poisons. Like, that's one of those. like the next verse is coming up here. It's one of those days, We're getting ready for big puja, so our pranas are a little agitated. That's funny. But I think Tarani is there. But so she's the world, and she's the one who saves us from the world. One of Kali's name, actually not just Kali's name, the Kali at Dakshineshwar. Actually, the Kali at Dakshineshwar is actually not her name. It's Jagadishwari Thakurani. That's her. When she was installed, she was given the name the goddess of the world, of the worlds. Right? She's the Jagadishwari. Right? But then I'm not sure if it was the very beginning. I'm trying to research that actually, how early the name Bhavatarani was being applied to her. Right? Because now it's actually we think her name is Bhavatarani. Even if you listen during Kali Puja night, they play, they televise Shama Kali Puja from Dakshineshwar on one of the Indian channels, right? All Indian channels, and you can hear during the Pushpanjali they say Sachana Pushpam Ma Jagadishwari Bhavatarani Dakshina. They use both her name, so maybe it was both names were there from the beginning, but it's become part of her when they offer flowers. The goddess of the universe who saves us from samsara, right? Saves us from fear, saves us from delusion, saves us from separation, saves us from birth and death. Whatever bhava and bhavyā mean, she's the one that helps us cross over that. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. It was in my original notes. So that's her name is Bhava, is Bhavatarani is also there. You mentioned the name. You were making a point, just bringing up her name. Okay, yeah, I guess if there is an important point there. But yeah, she is. But also that she's the one who saves us from the thing that she is. That's the amazing thing. She's playing all the parts. This is the part. This is the part that's complicated, right? She's playing all the parts, and she's playing, and she's having all, because she's bhava and she's bhavyā. She's also having all the reactions to all the parts being played. That's the thing and so that contemplation itself is an advaita vritti, is a way of thinking of non-duality. It's not just non-duality, everything just disappears into the one. When you see everything you see as the one, that's also a type of non-duality. I think that's a non-duality. I think I will boldly state this is the type of non-duality presented in Shakta Tantrism, right? So it makes sense that these names are like that, right? That she's playing all the parts. I got a comic, in the world, Facebook world, and you click on, whenever you get a funny comic, you click on it. There's one, it's a scene from it's a comic based on the Garden of Eden scene, and it shows Adam and Eve picking the apple, right, and the snake talking to, we know the story, right, the snake talking, but from behind the tree there's God, right, bearded, long hair type God, and his puppet, he has a snake puppet, and he's telling like that, it's an interesting, it's a clever thing, but it's like I think that's kind of true. He's playing all the parts, and she is our delusion, this type, and if you read the poems of Ram Prasad, and especially Ram Prasad, he blames her. Our illusion is her fault, right? You're the one that created this world and nudged us into it, right? Nudged us into it, right? And then until we get fed up and come crying to you, it's like, but so it's an interesting perspective. So it is also a advaita vritti. It is a thought of non-duality, to think how to see the one in everything, and in everything, and in all reactions, bhava and bhavyā. And you look at the next. We won't get to the next name. I won't say it again. Khatri and Hatri. Kartri. Kartri means she's the doer. She's the doer of everything. She's the only doer, right? And harati, she's the one that takes away everything, right? It's like she's doing everything. She's frustrating. She's frustrating everything. What is it? Palayitri. She's doing everything, and she's protecting us from all the things she's done. Right? Tamasi, she's darkness and ignorance. Daya, she's compassion. Oh, it's like you can't get away from her, right? And so this is a difficult. It's a difficult. I can't say it's a difficult worldview, because it's not even a possible worldview, right? But we get glimpses of it, and it's and the mind, what to use the Upanishad, the Taittiriya, comes back confused, and words can't reach that reality, and the mind can't reach that reality. It's very hard to understand, right? Famous song by Komalakanta. He says, "Thinking of these things, Komalakanta has gone crazy." Right, I think that's the response. And actually, there's a lot of views of what, like, we hear about ecstasy and bhava. Bhava, in that sense, is another thing. Another word for bhava is ecstasy, not just moods, right? And Thakur used that word bhava as the word ecstasy, right? And he was in bhava and things like that, right? But the Bengali devotional traditions from which these sattviga bhavas come, one of the bhava is that you get so overwhelmed by reality that you can't understand it, that the mind just gets overwhelmed, and the nervous system gets overwhelmed, thoughts get overwhelmed, and from the outside person looking at the person's in ecstasy and agony and everything in between. They go over. So thinking of these things, we hope you all go crazy thinking of these things. Sarveśvarī, sarva-mātā, śarvāṇī, hara-vallabhā, sarva-jñā, siddhidā, siddhā, bhāvyā, bhayāpahā. So, before I only ask one, any other point before we stop? Okay, we should do arati. Well, thank you for your kind of attention and your patience with our technical disasters. But we got to think of the things by name. Sri Guru Maharaj Ji ki jai, Mahamaya ki jai, Swamiji Maharaj Ji ki jai, Ma Jagadishwari. We have to add Ma Jagadishwari Bhavatarini Dakshina Kali ki jai.
But the Thakurani must have been added later, no? After Bhavyā.
No, I think it's in the original.
Thakurani officially was
Yeah.
the queen of Thakur.
No, here Thakur does not mean Thakur. Thakur itself means Lord. So Thakurani means Thakurmani is something like it's like goddess.
I see.
It also has a quality of like grandmother, or Raja Rajeshwari of empress. Has a lot of these. It's both intimate and like Thakur means Lord,
Yeah.
but we say it intimately, right?
Wow.
So Thakurani is something. It's the queen of the universe, but with an intimate flavor.
Wow, that's, I thought it was the queen of Thakur.
No. Thakurani is itself. So many people's home shrines would be my deity is Sri Sri Siddheshwari Thakurani. Like that's a very antiquated way of describing the name of your deity. You know.
It's like a Bengali.
But yeah, it's Bengali. Yeah, I think so. Even like, even sometimes people Okay, more. Get my knees going. The mind and the knees. And more coffee. Oh my goodness, look at all these. Jasmine. Whew. Try not to smell before mom, right? Wow. Govinda. Om Sri Gurubhyo Namah Hari Om Om Gananandva Ganapati Gam Vamahe Kavim Kavina Pavasravastamam Yeshwarajam Brahmanam Brahmana Sadhana Shanmanvata Vishwakaranam Om Sri Manmahaganapataye Namaha Lakshminarayanavyam Namaha Om Mahishwarabhyam Namaha Ganhiranyagarbhabhyam Namaha Sutibundarabhyam Sirvatabhyo Namaha Sudurvatabhyo Namaha Gramadutabhyo Namaha Vasudurvatabhyo Namaha Samvataभ्यो नमः सर्वेभ्यो देवेभ्यो नमः सर्वेभ्यो देवीभ्यो नमः मंगलम गुरुदेवाय देवीं मंगलम मंगलम भक्तावृन्देभ्यो सर्वलोकाय मंगलम ओम स्थापकाय धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतार वरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय मंगलम मंगलम गुरुदेवाय देवीं मंगलम मंगलम भक्तावृन्देभ्यो सर्वलोकाय मंगलम ओम ॐ ऐं आत्मतत्त्वं शौर्यामि स्वाहा ॐ ह्रीं बीजतत्त्वं शौर्यामि स्वाहा ॐ क्लीं शिवतत्त्वं शौर्यामि स्वाहा ॐ ऐं ह्रीं क्लीं सर्वतत्त्वं शौर्यामि स्वं विष्णु विष्णु विष्णुं धार्विष्णु परमं परं सदा प्रशन्त सूर्यदेव चक्षुरादतम् उमापविद्रवित्रो वा सर्वावस्तं वितोऽपि वा याश्वरपुण्डरीकक्षं सा भयन्तरशुचिः श्रीविष्णु 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 ॐ क्रीं विष्णुं तत्सत् ॐ ॐ वत् स्वाहा ॐ वत् स्वाहा ॐ वत् स्वहमस्त्राय वदोमुः वङ्गं चौषधवं ह्रीं क्रीं 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 इरां पाञ्च इरां सुकृतिजं क्रीं श्रीमदक्षिणा कलगाय नमः ॐ अमृतमहादेव्यामि नमः ॐ यत्राजाय विद्महे महायन्त्राय धीमहि तन्नो यन्त्रः प्रचोदयात् पुष्पयों हिङ्गरागशक्तिर्व्योर्मा ॐ नमः ॐ दीपाय नमः ॐ दीपाय नमः ॐ दीपाय नमः इदं पाञ्चमहाकालभैरवसहित ॐ क्रीं श्रीमदक्षिणा कलगायदेवी अवसेवं दर्शयामि नमः जय मा जय मा जय जय दक्षिणेश्वरी दक्षिण काली की जय माँ भवतारिणी दक्षिण काली की जय भगवान श्री रामकृष्ण परमहंस देव की जय जगन्माता श्री शारदा देवी की जय युगाचार्य स्वामी विवेकानंद महाराज जी की जय पूर्णा तीर्थ रुक्मिणीश्वर धाम की जय नमः पार्वती पते हर हर महादेव।
Somebody told Patty still. Astrology has come. I love it. Om Yastapakaya Chadharmasya sarva-jñā avatar varishtaya Ramakrishnaya Om Jananim Sharadam Devi Ramakrishna Janaru
Gopinath
Already forgot.
सर्वमंगलमंगल्ये शिवे सर्वार्थसाधिके शरण्ये त्र्यंबके गौरी नारायणी नमोस्तुते सृष्टिस्थितिविनाशानं शक्तिभूते सनातनी गुणाश्रये गुणामये नारायणी नमोस्तुते शरणागतदीनार्थ परित्राणपरायणे सर्वस्यात्रिहरे नारायणी नमोस्तुते जय 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 महामयी की जय जय Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna Deva ki jai. Jai Swami Ji Maharaj Ji ki jai. Jai Ma Dakshineshwari Bhavatarini Dakshina Kali ki jai. Jai Ma.
This is Mata Kineshwar. This photo is Mata Kineshwar.